Hi, I'm Jana. In balancing a chemical equation, we should apply the law of conservation of mass. Let us have an example. Following the rules in writing formulas of compounds, write the unbalanced chemical equation. Nickel sulfate reacts with lithium phosphate and yielded nickel phosphate and lithium sulfate. First, take note of the elements present in the reactant and the product side. We have nickel, sulfur, lithium, phosphorus, and oxygen. Second, count the number of atoms of each element present in the reactant and the product side. Third, apply the law of conservation of mass to get the same number of atoms of every element on each side of the equation. Lastly, balance the chemical equations by placing the appropriate coefficients before the symbol or formula. Do not change the subscripts of the formula to balance the equation, as it will change the identity of the components. As we can see, nickel atoms are not balanced. So we can think of a number that when multiplied by the subscripts on the reactant side, the value will be equal to the product. So what number or coefficients are we going to multiply on the reactant side for them to be equal? Correct! Number 3. Since nickel is one of the elements of nickel sulfate, sulfur and oxygen will also be multiplied by 3. The equation is still not balanced. Phosphorus atoms in the reactant side is 1, while there are 2 phosphorus atoms on the product side. So we can think of a number that when multiplied by the subscripts on the reactant side, the value will be equal to the product. So what number or coefficients are we going to multiply on the reactant side for them to be equal? Correct! Number 2. Since phosphorus is one of the elements of lithium phosphate, lithium and oxygen will also be multiplied by 2. The equation is still not balanced. Lithium atoms in the reactant side is 6, while there are 2 lithium atoms on the product side. So think of a number that when multiplied by the subscripts on the product side, the value will be equal to the reactant side. So what number or coefficients are we going to multiply to the product side for them to be equal? 3. That's right. Therefore, the balanced chemical equation is 3 moles of nickel sulfate and 2 moles of lithium phosphate and produces nickel phosphate and 3 moles of lithium sulfate. As we can see, the equation is already balanced. If you look at the equation, both the reactant and the product sides have 3 nickel atoms, 3 sulfur atoms, 6 lithium atoms, 2 phosphorus atoms, and 20 oxygen atoms.